911, what's your emergency?
Trainer down, the Orca has the trainer. We need help now.
It was meant to be flawless. A breathtaking display of trust between a human and one of nature's most powerful predators. But something went terribly wrong. What started as a routine show unraveled into a tragedy that no one saw coming. And in just 7 minutes, the illusion shattered. This is the story of Elena Hartley, a veteran Orca trainer whose final moments would leave a lasting scar on the world of marine performance. Before we begin, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share this story, so we can keep bringing you powerful and all untold documentaries like this one. Let's dive in. Elena Hartley never chased playgrounds or princess castles. While other kids were jumping rope or braiding each other's hair, she was crouched beside tide pools, watching sea stars shift and crabs skitter sideways like tiny armored dancers. By age 10, she could identify every species of dolphin along the Pacific coast by their vocal patterns alone. At 16, she started volunteering at the Pacific Coast Marine Institute. She scrubbed tanks until her fingers blistered and filled spiral-bound notebooks with questions that made professors pause. Why do orcas breach more during storms? Do they mourn the dead? Can they forgive betrayal? By 24, she had graduated with honors in marine behavioral science, but degrees meant little to her. Her real education came in the eye contact of giants, the quiet moments where trust wasn't given, but earned. And she had the touch. That's what other trainers called it. Not flashy or loud, just this calm, centered presence that animals leaned into. Elena didn't command, she conversed. Her gift soon drew the attention of Ocean World, the largest marine park on the West Coast. Within a year, she became their youngest senior orca handler in history. Guests requested her by name. New hires were told, "Watch how she moves, watch how she listens." But what made Elena special wasn't how she performed on stage. It was what she did backstage. She pushed for fewer shows, longer rest periods, enrichment beyond toys and frozen fish. She once whispered to a colleague, "They don't work for us. We work with them, or we shouldn't work with them at all." Her love wasn't naive. It was grounded in respect. But even she didn't know. That respect alone might not be enough. On the surface, Ocean World was paradise. Perched on 70 sunlit acres of California coastline, the park sparkled with tropical color and illusion. Steel drums played softly from hidden speakers. The air smelled of kettle corn and seawater. Children squealed as costumed dolphins waved from balconies, and families lined up eagerly beneath signs that read, "Splash Zone, prepare to get soaked." Then came the moment everyone waited for. The breach. Thousands of pounds of black and white muscle hurled skyward, defying gravity before crashing back into the pool with a sonic boom of water. The audience screamed in delight. Water drenched the first 5 rows. They were told the whales loved it. They performed because they wanted to. They smiled. They clapped. They chose this. Elena Hartley knew better. Behind the curtain of choreographed perfection, she had seen what the public never would. Fatigue, frustration, erosion of spirit. Each orca at Ocean World had a name, a file, a history. Some were born in captivity. Others were taken from the wild decades ago. These animals evolved to swim 100 miles a day, dive thousands of feet, communicate across vast ocean ranges, and raise young in matrilineal societies passed down for generations. Here, they spun in circles, swam laps in concrete pools, performed tricks for frozen fish. Cairo, the star male orca, was Ocean World's pride. At 23 feet long and over 11,000 pounds, he was a marvel. He had been at the park for over 20 years. His dorsal fin had long since collapsed, a known symptom of captivity. His eyes, once bright, now looked through people instead of at them. Elena fought for him, quietly but persistently. She requested longer breaks between shows, enrichment routines that mimicked wild behaviors, even moments of silence during sessions to reduce stress. But change was slow. Everything had to be weighed against revenue charts, guest surveys, and maintenance budgets. One afternoon, after another denied request, she told a manager, "You can't measure trust in a spreadsheet." The manager smiled politely, wrote nothing down. Ocean World wore its ethics like makeup, presentable from a distance, but smudged up close. Elena wasn't naive. She knew she was complicit just by staying, but she believed she could bend the system toward compassion. She believed love, patience, and presence could make a difference. Yet even she felt it, an invisible pressure tightening behind the glass walls. Cracks were forming, subtle, hairline fractures that only those closest to the animals could see. Cairo was magnificent. There was no other word for it. When he breached, it felt like the sky cracked open. When his tail slapped the water, the entire arena seemed to tremble. Children screamed his name like he was a superhero. Parents held up phones, trying to freeze that power in a blur of pixels. But power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it broods. February 17th began like a dream. Blue skies, a light breeze coming off the Pacific. 72 degrees, perfect weather for a midday show. By 11 o'clock a.m., the Orca Dome was packed. Rows of excited families filled the stadium's semicircle, the front rows dotted with ponchos and anticipation. Somewhere in Section C, a group of kids held a hand-painted banner that read, "We love Cairo," in glittery letters. Backstage, Elena Hartley stood in her wetsuit, hair tightly braided, headset adjusted. She was calm, focused, and completely present, just as she had always trained herself to be. She glanced through the thick acrylic tank wall. Cairo floated near the surface, still and unmoving. His great head faced the stadium wall, dorsal fin curving like a broken question mark. He hadn't eaten much that morning. He had refused a bridge cue during rehearsal, his signal to move between platforms. Elena had logged both observations, but she told herself the same thing she always did. At 11:46 a.m., the gates opened. Music swelled through the stadium, a crescendo of drums and electronic tones. The crowd erupted as Cairo breached, spraying arcs of water over the splash zone. A dozen phones rose instantly, capturing the moment. To the audience, it was magic. To Elena, it was almost a relief. But as the routine progressed, the signs began to pile up. Cairo hesitated on 2 cues, brief but noticeable. His slide onto the platform was delayed. His tail slaps hit harder, sending low, dampuan echoing vibrations through the pool. From across the stage, another trainer, Jenna, made eye contact. A quick flicker of concern. Elena nodded. She saw it too. Still, she pressed forward. This was Ocean World's flagship show, the midday feature. Cairo had done it 100 times, and with Elena he was always more stable. At 11:58 a.m., they entered the final sequence, the close contact swim. It was the show's signature moment. Elena barefoot, chest deep in the water, face to face with Cairo. She stood on the submerged platform, extended her right arm in a calm, practiced motion, a cue for the side swim. Cairo dipped beneath the surface, and then he came back up wrong. Not in position, not at the correct angle, not responding to her cue. There was no warning, no sound, just motion. Cairo lunged, His jaws clamped around Elena's arm and yanked her under with a single, horrifying sweep. The crowd gasped. A few clapped, thinking it was part of the act. But the illusion broke fast. Beneath the surface, chaos had begun. Elena's headset floated loose. One of her diving shoes slipped off. A thin ribbon of red bloomed through the churning water. Trainers scrambled. Emergency tone disruptors were deployed. Nets, buoys, decoys, all launched. But Cairo ignored them. He spun. He dove. He thrashed. Elena never resurfaced. 1 minute passed. Then 2. A trainer shouted her name. Another waved fish from the medical platform. At 12:08 p.m., Cairo let go. Elena's body rose, face down. She was pulled from the water with shaking hands. CPR began beside the tank as children cried and parents shielded their kids' eyes. By 12:23, she was gone. The stadium emptied in silence. And Cairo, once the marvel of Ocean World, floated alone in the blood-tinged pool, circling slowly beneath the glass. By 12:30 p.m., Ocean World was in lockdown. Security sealed off the Orca dome. Showtimes were pulled from the screens. Staff stood dazed near exits, handing out rain checks in hushed tones. The families who had once laughed at splash zone warnings now walked out in silence, past cartoon murals of smiling dolphins. At 3:15 p.m., a statement was released. "We are heartbroken to confirm the loss of our beloved senior trainer, Elena Hartley. We are cooperating fully with authorities. Our thoughts are with her family and colleagues during this difficult time." They said nothing more, but the world had already begun to whisper. By nightfall, Elena's name trended across social media platforms. A 10-second clip of her waving to the crowd minutes before the attack was aired on every major network. Headlines ranged from "Star Trainer Killed by Orca During Live Show" to "When Trust Turns Deadly." The footage didn't show the attack. It cut just before the lunge, but that only fed speculation. Was it an accident? A freak outburst? Or something deeper? Investigators from OSHA arrived the next morning. They requested hours of footage, staff testimony, and internal files. It didn't take long for patterns to emerge. Elena had warned them. Her name appeared in dozens of internal memos. She had flagged Cairo's behaviors for months. Increased jaw-popping, refusal to engage, aggressive circling, and signs of social withdrawal. Each report was marked with routine phrases: "Monitor," "Behavior within tolerable thresholds," "Trainers use discretion," "No action had been taken," "No shows had been canceled." Cairo remained the star. The autopsy was released within 48 hours. Blunt force trauma to the chest and abdomen, a dislocated shoulder, 4 fractured ribs, pulmonary hemorrhaging. Cause of death: drowning following prolonged submersion. But then came the chilling line from the coroner's notes. Even without submersion, internal injuries were likely fatal. It was no longer a mystery. It was a preventable death. Outside the park, the tone shifted from mourning to outrage. Protesters gathered at the gates with signs: "Free Cairo," "Justice for Elena," "End the shows." Animal rights groups mobilized instantly. The tragedy echoed too clearly the death of trainer Dawn Brancheau a decade earlier, killed by an orca named Tillicum. That loss had sparked documentaries, congressional hearings, and waves of change. Now it was happening again. Inside Ocean World, the staff splintered. Some quit. Others grieved in silence. A small group of trainers met in a locked break room that night, Elena's closest allies. No one spoke for a while. Finally, Jenna, the trainer who had made eye contact across the tank, whispered. She asked for time, for rest, for space. Everyone nodded. They all remembered. And now it was too late. Because sometimes The cost of silence isn't measured in policies or profits. Sometimes, it's a body pulled from the water, and a voice that will never warn again. By 12:30 p.m., Ocean World was sealed tight. Security moved quickly, closing gates, canceling shows, escorting guests out through emergency side exits that had never seen such steady foot traffic. The music was shut off. Souvenir stands were shuttered. Staff who normally handed out maps and dolphin stickers stood frozen, blank-eyed, unable to smile. Just hours earlier, children had screamed joyfully as Cairo breached. Now, those same children clutched parents in tears, asking questions no adult could answer. At 3:12 p.m., a press release was issued. "We are heartbroken to confirm the passing of senior Orca trainer Elena Hartley. We are cooperating fully with authorities. Our deepest sympathies go to her family, her colleagues, and all who are impacted by this tragedy." It was brief, sterile, a digital shrug, but the story had already broken past Ocean World's control. By nightfall, news outlets had flooded in. A grainy video clip, Elena waving to the crowd, smiling in her wetsuit, circulated with cruel speed. Headlines blared, "Orca kills beloved trainer mid-show." Another tragedy at a marine park. Echoes of Tillicum, "Have we learned nothing?" Social media burned. Hashtags exploded. "Justice for Elena." "Free Cairo." "Don't shut down Ocean World." Some people blamed Cairo. Others blamed the park. Many simply asked the one question that would not go away. How could this happen again? The Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, launched an immediate investigation. Federal wildlife authorities followed. Behavioral scientists were called in. Dozens of hours of footage were pulled from Ocean World's internal servers. What they found was damning. Elena Hartley had raised concerns about Cairo for months. Internal logs showed escalating behaviors, refusal to follow bridge cues, long periods of listless floating, increased jaw popping, aggressive turns, and loss of interest in food. Elena had submitted more than a dozen incident reports, all documented with precision. Each one was followed by a response. Behavior noted. Continue monitoring. No immediate threat observed. Proceed with caution. Cairo continued to perform. The final rehearsal log, dated just 3 hours before the attack, contained Elena's last note. Cairo, hesitant, did not respond to proximity cues, recommending a low-contact routine today. That note was never acted on. The midday show proceeded as scheduled. The autopsy report was released 2 days later. 4 fractured ribs, a dislocated shoulder, internal bleeding, pulmonary trauma, drowning, and in the coroner's final remarks, injuries consistent with blunt force trauma prior to submersion, likely fatal even without drowning. The silence became unbearable. Outside Ocean World, protesters arrived. Some wept, others screamed. Candles flickered beside printed photos of Elena smiling beside Cairo. Children laid down Orca plushies along the main gate. Inside, Elena's fellow trainers were breaking. Some resigned. Others stayed. Angry, grieving, determined not to let her death disappear into bureaucracy. In a quiet break room, Jenna, who had seen the hesitation in Cairo's movements across the tank, sat with her head in her hands. She asked for 1 day off the schedule, Jenna whispered. 1? No one answered. They didn't need to. The truth was clear. Elena hadn't been failed by Cairo. She had been failed by the silence, by a system that chose profit over pause. Now, that silence had a body count. Elena Hartley's death wasn't just a tragedy. It was a consequence of our refusal to listen. We caged intelligence, packaged suffering, and called it entertainment. And in doing so, we crossed a line. No show is worth a life. No applause justifies a broken soul, human or Orca. If her story moved you, don't let it fade. Comment below. Should orcas ever be kept in captivity? Yes or no? Your voice matters, because behind every tank is a choice to repeat this story or finally stop writing it.